Welcome to What's Happening Dracut. I'm going to be your lead host tonight, Gordy Scott. My name's Gordy Scott. John Zimini is on location.
Yes.
He's on assignment along with Phil Thibault, so they're not going to be with us tonight, but we have a lot of stuff to talk tonight about, and I've got my good friend, the Cub reporter, Richard Silvio. Richard, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, Gordy. How are you? You know, I suppose I'm kind of like the co-star today. I don't know. This is going to be an interesting. I'm very excited for this episode. Very excited.
So we're going to get into it a little bit later, but you broke a huge story, went national news.
I did.
So we'll get into that a little later. So congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Absolutely.
So tonight for the agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about what happened at the last Board of Selectmen meeting. There was a little tiff there with the Finance Committee, so we're going to play you a video about that. We're going to show you that. We're going to talk about the status of Richard's big scoop, breaking story. And we're going to talk about the low-income housing for the town annex. We have a special guest coming on tonight at 7:30. Rebecca Duda will be here. We'll be able to ask her a bunch of questions on her new role with the school committee. And we'll also be talking about the town meeting, which is happening next week. So we've got a lot of stuff to talk about.
Absolutely.
But before we get into the nuts and bolts of the show, I want to pass it over to our good friend Sean Kelly with Mills City Weather. Take it away, Sean.
Hi, John. Thanks for having me once again. And here's the forecast starting off with tonight, 57 degrees. We're going to drop it down to tonight, becoming cloudy. Again, could even be a spot shower or two as we head into the overnight hours. Winds are going to be coming out of the south at 5 to 10 miles an hour. And then as we head into Thursday, there is a chance for a few thunderstorms, especially during the afternoon hours. 75 degrees for a high temp, and it will become humid, especially later on in the afternoon into the evening hours. Winds aren't going to be that bad, 5 to 10 miles an hour. But with those thunderstorms, you could get a gust up to 60 miles an hour. So that's something to keep in mind, of course, as we head through the day on Thursday. Even into Thursday night, transfer a few thunderstorms early before clearing later on in the overnight hours. 67 degrees for a low temp on Thursday night, and that's not really that low. If anything, that's above average for an overnight low, and kind of warmer than what we had this weekend, of course, Memorial Day weekend, as you know, with all the rain. We finally did have a clear sky later on Memorial Day night, of course, right after Memorial Day weekend. And then as we head into your 8-day forecast, let's take a look. Thursday, Friday, chance for a few showers and even a few thunderstorms as we head into Thursday and Friday. And then the next week, the heat starts to set in once again, near 100 degrees as we head into next Tuesday and Wednesday. So another heat wave setting up once again for next week. So let's keep an eye on that. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks, Sean. Did you see that, Richard? Almost 100 degrees.
I did. You know what? It figures, right, that we have 3 weeks of pure 90-degree weather, then Memorial Day rolls around and it downpours.
Right.
Really.
I don't know. It's crazy weather.
Absolutely.
So I'm queuing up we're gonna look at what happened at the Board of Selectmen last meeting. So I'm gonna get that queued up. But I want to send a special shout out to our good friend Don Moose Morawski. He's been in the hospital. I don't have an update on Moose to see how he's doing, but our best wishes go out to Moose. Hopefully he gets better soon.
Absolutely.
And hopefully we'll have an update about Moose. I'm sure we'll post it on Facebook once we find out more information. So let's talk quickly before we get into the Board of Selectmen meeting and the Finance Committee.
Yes.
Tiff. What have you been up to, Richard, the last few?
So now,
have you signed any autographs? No. I saw you on every news station in New England.
Well, you know, Gordy, I appreciate the compliments. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, I am selling my autographs. They're $10 per autograph, so keep that in mind. You can reach me on Facebook for that. No, I'm kidding. They're $50. But anyways, the story that I broke. So basically, for those of you who live under a rock and haven't heard already, can I say his name? What can I? I don't want to get sued by 50 people. Right, so what can I say, Gordy?
There was a teacher at the Dracut High School.
Yes, there was a science teacher at the Dracut High School who released, as many of you know, a wildly inappropriate sexual survey to his class. I was not in the class, but I've had him before, and I was shown the survey. I have a copy of it. And really, it horrified me. I was absolutely disgusted. And as you know, as soon as school was over, I went to What's Happening Dracut. I let you guys know. I called a few news stations. I let them know. And next thing you know, my face is on all the televisions in New England.
I saw it broke news on the AP, Yahoo News. I saw it was on there.
Yes.
So
I saw it on a British news station actually as well. So that kind of blows me away.
So do you have any update for us? Have you heard anything?
So Gordy, what I find interesting is, the school committee says they're aware of it. They didn't discuss it at that meeting on the following Monday, I believe. And they haven't released any sort of statement, at least. I know the superintendent came out and did, but you haven't heard anything from the school committee. So I'm wondering if they're going to try to sweep this under the rug. I'm really interested to see what happens next.
All right, well, we'll have to stay on top of that and provide our viewers and
I'll be right on the ball. Don't worry about that.
All right, so next I want to get into, if you don't watch the Board of Selectmen meeting, the last meeting, I think it was the 14th or the 11th, I forget the exact date, but something came up, they were talking about the town warrant articles that were going to go on the town meeting, and Joe DeRocco brought up the fact that the Finance Committee didn't approve any of these, make any motions on whether they're for or against these articles. So it went back and forth with the town manager, Ann, and she said she's trying to get them to focus on it, and then Joe DeRocco made a few comments that they're not doing their job. What the heck do we have them? What are they doing over there? Why do we even need them? So a couple of the board members came to the May 25th meeting, and I want to play a video from that. So Nate, if you can bring my screen up here, we'll show the viewers what I'm talking about. Hopefully, let's see. Let me, technical difficulty here. Let me
while that uploads, Gordy, didn't the Finance Committee have to upload their finance report in April? Isn't that when that was due?
Correct,
April?
yeah.
So it's interesting how Ann Vandal says that, they need a focus when they've been working on that, I presume. It's really...
Right, exactly.
Let's see this clip. I'm really looking forward to
All right, here we go.
Say.
I speak for myself tonight, but want to thank the rest of the committee for supporting me. I'm here because of comments made at the last Selectmen's meeting. Mr. DeRocco started the meeting talking about negativity, false accusations, and weaponizing a platform. 1 hour into the meeting, Mr. DeRocco then used his platform as a selectman as a weapon to attack the Finance Committee, questioning, why do we need them? During the discussion about the town meeting warrant articles, there were comments that were uncalled for, unprofessional, and untrue. The town manager said, and I quote, "I have not been able to get them to focus on the budget itself." Untrue. We finished reviewing the budget on April 12th. When I look at the minutes for the last 6 years, outside of 2020, the budget review was completed between March 28th and May 3rd. The other years, the budget was completed April 2nd, April 10th, and April 13th. We were right on track with finishing our budget review. For Article 5, the town manager said she didn't quite understand why we hadn't made a recommendation and said we wanted to see what the Board of Selectmen wanted to do. Again, untrue. We still had questions on some of the amounts, wanted to wait until our next meeting before making a recommendation. That is our right and our duty as an independent committee, Mr. Foresee. For Article 15, we did not make a recommendation because the article was incorrect. A line item was listed that shouldn't have been, and the total was incorrect. Again, the town manager's comment that we were waiting for the selectmen's recommendation was untrue. For Article 19, our motion to refer to November didn't appear to have been given to the selectmen. And again, the town manager said we were waiting for the selectmen's recommendation. Untrue again. I do find it interesting that the Finance Committee was told something totally different from what the selectmen were told on that article. For Articles 31 through 35, I asked if we could put these off to our next meeting because I wanted to hear Bruce Cody's explanations. Once again, the town manager said we were waiting for the selectmen, and once again, this was untrue. What was the purpose of the false narrative provided by the town manager, and why were Mr. Foresee and Mr. DeRocco so eager to believe it without checking facts? Who is managing whom? The Finance Committee is doing their job by reviewing the budget and warrant articles. At what point will the selectmen focus on doing theirs? Thank you.
Okay, next we have Michelle Clement. Comments regarding last Selectmen's meeting. Hi.
Michelle Clement, 520 Nashua Road. I want to thank you all for allowing me to speak this evening. The Selectmen meeting on Tuesday the 11th began with Mr. DeRocco having just come off a win through town election, thanking his community for their support. In addition, he asked for more young people to volunteer to join boards and committees. It was so refreshing and nice to hear. About an hour and 20 minutes into the meeting took a turn. I am a part of this Finance Committee. I'm a 34-year-old single mother who works full-time, and I'm on various other boards. I was taken back by the comments of the Select Board stating, what do we need them for? Do your job. One of your fellow selectmen did take a stand on behalf of the Finance Committee and say, I think we're being a bit harsh on volunteers. I found this very distasteful, discouraging, and highly unprofessional. This is one of the many reasons why people do not volunteer. I choose to be on this committee to hopefully help the town of Dracut and become involved in this great community. I would ask that before you speak on the committee in a public forum, that you ask what our input is and join one of our finance committees to see what really is going on. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Wow. Just wow.
Richard, your thoughts on that video that you just saw?
You know, honestly, good for Karen and Michelle for speaking out. You know, I think it really needed to be said. You know, you have Dracut sitting there on the Board of Selectmen. He's going out and attacking whoever he wants. Honestly, what I think it is he doesn't read the reports that are being put on his desk, so he doesn't know what people are up to, and he just tries to assign them more work and more work while he sits there and puts his feet up on the desk. Because as we know, Gordy, it doesn't mean a bean of hills to him what the other people do. So, really, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So I just find it interesting that he used that May 11th Board of Selectmen meeting to attack our show and say that we say negative things about people, and that's why younger people aren't showing up and volunteering for things. But as you just saw from the people themselves, they said it's not us saying it, it's Mr. Dracut. It's those kinds of attacks that he does. See, it's okay for him to attack people, but it's not okay for us to disagree with people.
Oh, Gordy, we can't do that. It's a one-way street. Don't you know
Exactly.
that? You know what I find beautiful? Well, actually, no, it's horrifying. I guess beautiful is the wrong word. How Joe Dracut says that this show is the reason why young people aren't getting involved. Well, first of all, Joe, this show is the reason that I've been getting involved in town politics, and you, Joe, are the reason why I haven't been getting involved. Because as you know, when I did that hilarious "Where's Joe Dracut" skit, and it was pretty hilarious if I do say so myself, the whole basis of it was that I wasn't able to get in contact with Joe and get involved with local politics. So he really is one of the biggest hypocrites I've ever seen. It's absolutely horrifying. It really is.
And, and it is surprising that he shouldn't be surprised that these people came back and spoke up because. This is the kind of thing he does. I don't think he realizes that, when he speaks like as he does, that it's not upsetting folks that, what he says. And he's in a different position.
Yeah.
We're on a TV show. He's representing the town, so it's a little bit different.
Gordy, I think he absolutely knows what he's doing. He absolutely does. And you know what? The fact that Michelle and Karen actually spoke up, I think that's the sign of change. I think it's getting to the point where people are not going to be scared of Joe Dracut anymore, and they're going to speak up. And you know what? I'm going to be behind them, rooting them on the entire time. It's needed change, really.
And how has your show been going, by the way?
The show, it's been going good. I believe 2 episodes ago it was. Yeah, the 15th episode. I went off at the end about Joe Dracut.
Yeah, that's why I was bringing that up.
Yeah, Again, it was stuff that needed to be said, and it's basically, what I just said here, that, Joe Dracut was the reason why young people aren't getting involved. He just wants him and his old gang to be in control of the town. He doesn't want anybody new to pop up, and if they do, he crushes them instantly in the most brutal way possible.
Unless they agree with him.
Unless they play ball.
Right.
Absolutely. But you know what? I don't even know how to play ball, so it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting.
So the next thing on our agenda, I want to talk a little bit about the low-income housing in the town annex. I don't know if you're familiar with that. You may not know, being a young person, but the old town hall is on Spring Hill Ave. It's right behind, kind of kitty corner from where Wendy's, if you know where Wendy's is.
Oh yes, a while ago they had a few days ago they had the digging, the
Correct.
first dig. Yes,
correct. So the Center for a Better Acre is running that project.
Yes.
So I dug a little bit deeper into that because we did give, over the past several years, there was articles on the town warrant for the town to vote to give money out of our CPC funds to that project. So I wanted to follow up, and I had been mentioning it briefly in other shows. We were going to stay on top of that, make sure that project gets done, because it's been 4 or 5 years since anything's been done. So it was good to see that they finally put the shovels in the ground and they're starting to work on that project. From my research, it's probably going to take them about 8 months to get it completed. So hopefully near the end of this year it'll be done. They plan on creating 9 units, 9 apartment units in there. So they're going to have either a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom apartments within that building, which will be good. And then it's going to be designated primarily for veterans.
Yeah.
And any veterans in Dracut will have first dibs on it. So if you're a veteran that
wonderful.
lives in Dracut, you're looking for housing, this will be an opportunity for you to take advantage of that once they're ready. It did state in the paper that the one-bedroom units will be going anywhere from $900 to $920 a month.
Oh, really?
And that includes your utilities, so that's actually not too bad. And then the two-bedroom units will be $1,100 a month, and that also includes utilities, so there will be no utilities for the
Really?
the renters. So that's pretty
wonderful.
good. So let's just go over the cost.
Yeah.
Because when you look at that building, structurally it was in good shape, but there's a lot of it's not handy. There's no elevator. Yeah. It's not handicap accessible. But as part of this deal, I think what they were waiting for, why it took so long, is they're waiting for funds from the state, which they did get. So they got $1.8 million from the state for this project. The total cost of the project is $3.7 million estimated. So they are getting $1.8 million from the state for this project, and the taxpayers, us, we paid $1.25 million. So they're taking $1.25 million out of the CPA funds. In addition, 1.8 from state funding. Yeah. That brings us just over $3 million, and the total cost is $3.7 million. So if you think about it, there's only a $650,000 private investment that's needed.
Yeah. Have they secured that yet, or?
I believe so, because they started. Oh. I would like to be the investor on that, by the way, because with that you get the low-income housing tax credit, which means as long as that facility is for at least a low-income housing for 30 years, you get tax credits on that over a 10-year period. So there's no tax on that, any monies that you earn on that property. So the question I have is, I'd like to know who the investor is that is investing the money, because I think that's a pretty nice deal. I don't know if it's the Center for the Better Acre that's actually running that project, is actually financing that project. So with that total cost, that breaks down to about $411,000 for each unit, which is pretty expensive.
Yeah, no kidding.
$411,000 for each unit. But again, so it will come down to $650,000 in financing. So if you finance that with a 3% interest loan for 30 years, your mortgage would be about $2,740 a month. And then if you figure out if they have, I heard that it's somewhere between two or three two-bedrooms and 5 or 6 one-bedrooms. So I'm just going to take 6 one-bedrooms, 3 two-bedrooms. That equates to $8,700 a month. And their mortgage is only $2,700 a month. The town only sold that building for $1. So they were able to purchase the building itself for $1. So, that equates to about a $6,000 per month windfall for whoever the investor is. Now they've got to pay the utilities, pay someone to administer the building and to collect the checks and all that. So there is some expense there, but still they're probably going to make $4,000 a month if they can rent all those apartments. Or that equates to about $104,000 a year in profit. They probably would make about $50,000 a year.
Now, Gordy, does that property fall under any sort of historical
yes,
law?
so that's why that's where the CPA comes in.
Okay.
So there's low income and historical preservation. So portion of that $1.25 million is for historical preservation of the building. So
you have to maintain the outside. Correct.
Exactly. So it kind of looks like the building.
Right.
It used to be the Center School, I believe it was the name of it. So people want to go drive by that and see that building the way they, the school that they used to go to.
Way back in the.
It is I think it is a good project. It just, I was kind of drawn aback because of the price tag on it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think it would cost that much, but again, I get it because there's,
everything's going up nowadays.
If you're a person in a wheelchair, there's no way to get up and down the stairs, so they need to put an elevator in. That's not cheap. But we'll see. I would like to know who the private financer was.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Because I think that is a pretty good deal for whoever got that. To have that building and to, I think it's a pretty good windfall for whoever invests. I think it's a no-brainer for an investor to invest in that.
Absolutely.
Project. So, Richard, what do you have anything on that? We normally don't get to talk about national politics.
Yes.
On the show because there's a lot of stuff we talk about locally, and we have Rebecca Duda coming on in about a half an hour. So I don't want to.
She's always fun to talk to.
Yeah, she's always fun, and can't wait to see what her thoughts are on what's happening with the schools, her new position on the school committee.
Yeah.
How she's jockeying within that organization. Yeah. But tonight I wanted to talk a little about national politics.
Okay, all right, Gordy. All
so
right.
what are your thoughts about what's happening with how Joe Biden's doing?
You know, it's been over 100 days.
Just for so people are aware, are you a Democrat, Republican?
I am a Republican. Well,
Okay.
technically, I'm a pre-registered Republican, so next year I will be a full-fledged
but
one.
your concepts and thoughts
Yeah,
are with
I'm pretty.
you're a conservative person.
I don't want to say I tote the party line, but I do pretty much align with the conservatives. Anyway, so Joe Biden, it's been over 100 days. I said I was going to give him a chance in January. I gave him a chance. And let's just say he exceeded my expectations.
Really?
My expectations being rather low.
Oh, okay.
You turn on the news every single day, and you don't know what he's going to say. Every day, people were worried about Trump and what he was going to say. Frankly, I'm worried about what Biden's going to say, because oh my goodness, Gordy. I don't even know where to begin. He's such a train wreck. I'm sorry. He's such a train wreck. Didn't he? I read in a paper the other day that he defunded a pipeline in Alaska.
Right.
And I find that interesting because aren't we funding pipelines in other countries?
Yeah, the European pipeline. Yeah. Yep. So, but he said when they asked him about it, he said, "Well, it was already done anyway, so it was just a matter of." And there was also some issues with Russia and Europe, like as far as his foreign policy goes.
What about the hacking, Gordy?
Yes,
He's been hacking left and right.
Yeah.
At first it was, I forget who it was, I think it was the energy department first, and now it's the food packing industry. So.
Yeah, and there was, last year there was SolarWinds was the company that got hacked by the Russians as well. So there's a lot of government agencies that had SolarWinds software, so they got hacked. So some user accounts and stuff like that were possibly received by the Russian. So I think at this point, we're really in a cyber world war, because China's attacking us constantly, Russia's attacking us constantly, and I think it's time. We're basically on the defense. We basically just try to catch them and stop them. I think we need to start attacking back.
Absolutely.
Start taking some of their systems down. And maybe they'll get the message that, hey, we better not mess with them. But until we do that, I think it's just going to continue.
Gordy, what somebody brought up to me is with all these hacks, of the different industries, the person who I was talking to was wondering if maybe this is a test run for a major attack to come in the future. Gordy, what do you think? I think personally that's absolutely possible.
Well, I think that's possible. I think what they'll attack is the things that are best or most likely to be protected are our financial industry, right? Government finance is pretty secure, but some of the smaller utility companies, I don't think are in a strong security position. So I think that would be where they would want to attack, start taking power down.
It seems these companies, are worth billions and billions of dollars, yet their security system is like a cracker box. It's honestly scary how easy it is to hack into their systems.
Well, I don't think it's easy, not for the general lay person, but for someone that's their job, for a criminal that wants to break into the system.
Well, you do IT, correct?
Right.
Do you handle this type of
security?
Or?
Not this specifically, but I'm well aware of a lot of things that are happening in the in the industry. That's not security isn't my specialty, but obviously I'm well versed in it because you just need to be a
man of all trades.
Yeah. So the other thing is too I wanted to discuss tonight is inflation.
Yeah.
Because we've seen, and I don't know if you've seen it as much as I've seen it, but going to the grocery store, buying goods and services, going to McDonald's, going to any fast food restaurant.
It's all going up.
Yeah. What's your experience with that? Have you noticed that out of your pocketbook, like the money that you spend?
Honestly, out of my pocketbook, no, because my parents, they obviously buy the groceries.
Right. But
going with them, to the grocery store. Sometimes what I like to do is, as we buy groceries, I like to add up in my head, what is it going to cost?
Try to figure out what it's going to cost.
And then you get to the end, and what I'm noticing recently is you get to the end, you pay for it, it's always way higher than you think it's going to be because of the inflation. It's ridiculous, you know? You go out to buy a gallon of milk, some ice cream, it ends up being like what? Oh, $12 sometimes? It's absolutely ridiculous. Not to mention gas.
Right, and I just got back from Las Vegas last week.
Oh, that's right.
And I noticed the gas out there was about $4 a gallon.
Really?
So here, and then I came back, it was just under $3, I think we're at now. But, you know, down south, because of the pipeline issue that we had a month ago, the prices are still relatively high. So, you know, when we buy goods and services from the south, they've got to deliver them up here. So that gas price has to get pushed.
It affects everyone. It really does.
And the other thing is, you know, a lot of these states now are raising the minimum wage.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people say, well, what's wrong with that? That's a good thing, right? Well, it is.
Well, if you look into it, it's really...
Well, because what happens if you own a company, Richard, right, and you pay someone $8 an hour, and now you have to pay them $10 an hour.
You're going to have to cut some employees.
Or you have to cut some employees, or the other option is you've got to make, say you have 100 employees, now you've got to pay them $2 more an hour times 100 is $200 an hour.
Yeah.
You multiply that by how many hours you're open.
Yeah.
And then you have to say, guess what? Either I have to cut some people, or I just raise my prices, so I get in $200 more an hour. So that's what I think we're seeing.
Yeah.
So I think some of the Democrat policies that they're pushing forward, while in theory they sound good, when you go to implement them, that we're seeing that. You know, the problem is it causes inflation, and we're seeing that now. Well, so the big news will be coming out June 8th.
Yeah.
Or June 10th, I should say. On June 10th, we'll have the CPI, the Customer Index, will be coming out. So we'll see if inflation continues to ride. Last month, I think it was 0.8%. The month before, 0.5%. So if it continues on that rate, a lot of people think the stock market will crash. I personally don't think it will yet, because the problem is if you put money in the bank and interest rates are going, inflation's going up, your money's worth less. So you're less likely to save it, and you're more likely to invest it, because you're going to get more percentage on your dollar from investments than you are from a savings account.
And you know, Gordy, what I've noticed is it appears that a lot of these Democrats are fleeing their Democratic safe havens to move into Republican states, but they're implementing the same policies. You know, if you look at California, for example, right? California is a big hot ball of fire. It's garbage on fire, right? And people are leaving California and going to Texas, for example, and they're starting to implement those same policies there. So, like you said, Gordy, with inflation, you're going to start seeing that in a lot of red states because of the Democrats fleeing their own states.
Right.
It's really
Now, have you read anything about another thing that's hitting? Another thing that's happened that's really hit the marketplace is, you know, we have a call? Okay, we got a caller. All right, you're on with Gordy and Richard on What's Happening Dracut. Who is calling, please?
Hey guys, how are you doing tonight?
Who? Yeah,
we're fine. How are you?
Who is this?
This is John from Dracut.
Hey, John, how you doing? What do you want to talk about tonight?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Doing all right. I got a question for Richard. I know he said he usually toes the party line for the Republicans and is a conservative. I'm just curious of why he thinks the Republicans won't allow an investigation into the riot on the Capitol on January 6th.
Good question, Richard. What do you
this
think
is
about that?
the ball's in my court. All right.
Yes.
You know, honestly, I think it's all a mess. I mean, me personally, I know I said I don't tote the party line, and I guess this is where that kind of shows. Because personally, I do think there should be some sort of an investigation into what happened. I just think what it is a lot of the Republicans right now in Congress are still pro-Trump. And they just won't let that go, and they don't want to let an investigation happen. So you know what? I absolutely hold them accountable for that, and I think something needs to be done. I think we do need a 9/11 type of commission to look into that, and personally, I blame the Republicans for not.
Or a Benghazi type commission.
Yeah, so, you know, something to that degree. We absolutely need to look into it. And like I said, I will say for that, I do think it's stubborn Republicans who won't let that happen. So.
Sure. And are you one of the Republicans that would like to see Trump back in office in 2024, or do you think his time is come and gone?
You know, honestly, I think his time has come and gone. I wasn't a Trump person at first when he was elected. For around 2016 to 2017, I was a big Hillary guy. But then, you know, I eventually switched over and started supporting Trump. But now that he's out of office, I'm sorry, adios. You know, you had your chance. I think he did fairly well, but he's gone now, and we need to look towards the future. I really think that if the Republicans choose Donald Trump as the next nomination, they're going to lose. because of all the hate Donald Trump has gotten. The media, the only reason that I think he won in the first place was because the media gave him so much attention, But after the election, they even stated themselves that they learned from that, and they knew that if he ran again, they weren't going to give him that much coverage.
I think he plans on running, John, but I think the problem is I don't think he has a huge backing from the Republican Party now, but I think as time goes on, once we get
I don't think he will. I don't think he wants to take a chance on losing again. I think he might support a candidate. But the problem is the Republicans seem to be, I voted Republican all my life since 1984. And it seems to me the Republican Party is more like the party of Trump. And whoever runs in 2024, I think, is going to be pretty aligned with Trump's beliefs and his views, which could be even somebody that supports QAnon, which is a pretty scary...
right.
Cult-like group.
All I'll say about that is, like you said, I will agree that I have noticed that it seems the Republican Party is almost turning into the party of Trump, which kind of concerns me. I don't really understand it. Maybe it's because of my age and I'm naive. But I really don't understand what the fascination is. Like I said, he came in, he was the president, he lost. It's time to move on.
Right. Really. Well, I think. For the Republican Party, I think the next candidate, in my opinion, is going to be the governor of South Dakota.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say Florida.
No, of South Dakota.
Really?
I know Ron DeSantis is probably one of the leading candidates as well, but I think, and I can't think of her name, Christie, can't think of her name. Her name eludes me, but she really polls well. Yeah. And I think the public is ready for a woman president, so I think she might have a chance. But I just think right now...
I think DeSantis is...
Go ahead, John.
I think DeSantis is the darling of the party right now, but I'm not sure he could carry the top of a ticket being in Florida. I mean, that's not a solid red state right now. It's sort of in flux, so... But I'm very surprised Richard's views. I thought he was solidly pro-Trump and wanted him back like so many people do, but...
John Zimini, I think, is that way.
Yeah.
Both sides.
All right, John. Well, thanks for calling in. We thank you for watching the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So we got 25 minutes before Rebecca Duda comes in.
We do. You know what? If you don't mind, I'd like to bring up a topic to talk about.
Sure.
On the topic of national politics, I wanted to bring up Memorial Day.
Yes.
I'm sure you've seen what Kamala Harris said regarding Memorial Day. She said, and I quote, well, I shouldn't quote her, paraphrasing, something along the lines of, have a wonderful long weekend.
Yes.
Did you hear that?
I did.
Did you hear that, Gordy?
And I did, and I saw that President Biden was also eating an ice cream. And said enjoy the stay cool over the weekend, but no mention of our troops and
it's disgusting.
Respecting the people that have died to make our country free.
Gordy, let me know if I go on a little too much.
Okay, go ahead.
I tend to go off on this topic. Over Memorial Day weekend, as you know, I was very involved with the Greater Lowell Veterans Council and the American Legion in town, Post 315. Love you guys. You guys are awesome. And I gave a speech on Sunday at the Greater Lowell Veterans Council at the Lowell Memorial Auditorium on Merrimack Street. And, I went off on what Memorial Day means to me and how my generation is kind of forgetting the meaning of it. And after sitting and talking with all those vets, we had a Desert Storm vet, Matt Elkins, on my TV show on Friday. I talked to some World War II guys. The Nam Knights from Vietnam were there. And, I've always loved veterans, but after meeting them and then hearing what Kamala Harris said, it really ripped my heart out of my chest.
Now, Richard, you're doing another project as well for Dracut.
Yes.
You want to talk about that? I still owe you money, by the way.
I'm going to keep, don't worry, I'm keeping you in the little black book.
All right.
But
talk about that
so
if the viewer, and let the viewers know how if they want to donate to your cause.
Wonderful. I will absolutely give myself a plug.
Okay.
Why not? But on the topic of veterans, that's one of the reasons why they asked me, touching the mic, that's one of the reasons they asked me to give a speech because of the project I'm doing in town. As many of you may know, I'm the president of the World War I Rededication Committee right here in town. It was a committee that I am the founder of, and basically our goal is to restore and clean the World War I memorial we have over at Hovey Square. It's the one by Hannaford's, it's the big granite with the plaque, the bronze
tell
plaque
us,
on both sides.
who actually was dedicated that originally? Can you talk about that?
Yes, absolutely. So the plaque was dedicated, memorial was dedicated on May 30th, 1925. General Clarence Edwards, his name eluded me for a moment, was here. He was the head of the 26th Yankee division, made up of all men from New England. He was a pretty big deal, he gave a speech and everything. And I was looking over John Pendergast's Dracut book, of all the photographs, and Calvin Coolidge, the then president of the United States, was here in town, and he dedicated it himself. Can you believe that?
That's amazing.
The plaque, it absolutely is, and people don't know about it.
And how much is that going to cost to restore that?
So, our overall goal is $10,000. We definitely don't think we need that. That's just kind of, it'd be great if we could have it. Right now, we're focusing on getting new flowers, and that costs quite a bit of money. Cleaning the stone, the chemicals we're donating for the granite.
That's the big part.
That's the big. Well, for me, the big part is the plaque itself.
Okay.
We are kind of in a rut right now. I've called a few companies. I've been on hold. They're doing some research for me on getting it cleaned because it's almost 100 years old.
Right.
It's made out of bronze. They're both very large. I believe they're at least 3 feet by 5 feet on both sides, and there are a lot of different options to go about it. There's the patina, there's the rust, there's the dirt, there's so much that we have to do with it. So right now we're trying to raise as much as possible to get that done. We would also
do you have an estimate of what you think
of what that would cost?
Just for that plaque,
For the plaque itself, right now, no, and I'll tell you why. I got off the phone today with a few monument companies, and I gave them the measurements, where it was, and they're actually going to be giving me an estimate in the next few days to figure out what that is going to be.
But if someone out there watching wants to donate $5, $10, $20,
oh, yes, absolutely. If you would like to donate to my committee or the project is called Project World War I. Lest we forget, you can look up that name on Facebook, and on the Facebook there is a link to the GoFundMe page, or if you prefer to, you could write us a check to the World War I Rededication Committee, and if you'd like to give that to me, you can reach out to me on Facebook personally. It's
or just touch out, or they can reach out to.
Absolutely, reach out to What's Happening Dracut, the Big O Silvio Show, any source that I'm with. It's but if you want to reach out to me, it's SILVIO, my last name Richard Silvio, and we would absolutely appreciate any donation.
Even if it's $5, right?
Even anything helps, really. Okay. No matter how
small. If someone's collecting cans and they can turn the nickels in. And,
I will go up to your house and I will take a nickel if you'd like to give me a nickel.
All
absolutely.
Right. Well, that's great because that's a great cause, and I was surprised to see that Calvin Coolidge actually was here to dedicate that. So that's pretty neat. There
are 160 names on that plaque, 160, all Dracut men who fought in the First World War. 8 of them, unfortunately, did not return. And, it's heartbreaking because really nobody thinks about the First World War. They call the World War II generation the greatest generation, which, don't get me wrong, they did wonderful things, I suppose wonderful is the wrong word. They did very brave things. But personally, for me, I give the star to the World War I generation because if you think about it, Gordy, they grew up in the 1907 recession. Not as bad as the Great Depression, but they were having financial issues. Right. They went right into a war that some argue we shouldn't have even been in. They got mustard gas thrown at them, bayonets, going over the top in trenches right into machine gun fire. Frankly, World War I was the most brutal war we ever fought in. Then they get out of the war. Half of them have shell shock, and at that time, in 1918,
PTSD
can you imagine what type of mental health care there was? Absolutely. Yeah. And then alcohol is made illegal. It's against the law, so they can't even enjoy a drink. They get arrested for it. Crime rates go through the roof. They go through the 1920s. Then they get hit by the Great Depression, and then their kids have to go fight into a war, World War II. Can you imagine?
That's crazy.
It's unbelievable.
But I think that's a great cause, and yes. I think a lot of times we'll drive by. We drive by monuments. Like your point is, do people even realize what Memorial Day is about? And sometimes we drive by monuments, and there's one near my house on Methuen Street. I stop, and I didn't know about I can't think of his name, but I stopped and read the plaque, and it's pretty amazing what
is it the Boulay?
Yeah.
Michael Boulay, I believe. What's his name? Yes.
Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah.
But you read those monuments, and it's amazing what some of these people in Dracut did, and they're not famous people, but they did their part.
They
did their part, right?
Well, what's the saying? All gave some gave all.
Yep.
It's absolutely true.
That's a good Billy Ray Cyrus song, by the way.
Yeah, is it really?
Yeah.
Oh,
all right, so back to national politics.
Yes.
So what were your thoughts on the recent Biden blunders? Have you seen any of those on TV?
I have. Would you like to fill me in?
About the girl, he spoke at the the 100th anniversary for the Tulsa burning, the stock market burning.
I know of the speech, but I didn't hear what he said. Would you like to? I've been out of the loop, Gordy, with the project. I've been so busy.
Okay.
Would you like to fill me in?
No, but he made some mention. There were some young ladies there, and he made some mention that they're so cute. And
Oh no.
yeah, and they have barrettes in their hair, their legs crossed like a young lady, a 19-year-old young lady. So it was a little embarrassing, but
That's
it was a little creepy. Some people thought that was a little creepy.
I think that's very, very creepy, Gordy.
So you didn't see that video, huh?
I have not seen it. You know what? I feel bad now because I feel like I'm putting you on the spot, but like I said, I've been so busy with the project.
Okay.
I've kind of been out of the loop a little bit.
And we do have a
goodness.
town meeting coming up.
June 17th?
No, I think it's June. Yeah, it might be June 17th. I'll have to look that up.
I wish it wasn't, though, because I'm going away. I'll be at a political convention that week, so I'm going to miss the first...
Yeah, so we do have a bunch
Yeah.
of articles. I don't have a copy of the articles. I wanted to go through a few of the articles.
Yeah.
But we do have some stuff on the CPA that's coming up. And I think most of the other stuff is pretty much finance, the budgets.
Yeah.
And it was brought up in the meeting that the Finance Committee did not approve one of the articles because the actual information on the warrant was incorrect.
Really?
So they either made a mistake or a typo or something. So they didn't make any endorsements either way
Right.
on that warrant article. So I just thought it was kind of funny because they did that. So if you guys do want to make a difference in town, the town meeting is one of those places where you can go and actually your voice is heard, because usually about 250 people to 300 people go to the town meeting. And
Out of 33,000.
That's where they do make big changes to how the town operates. And they actually go through they don't go through the budget, but they give you a high level budget. Here's how much we're spending. I think it's 82 million or whatever it is. So you can actually vote not to approve that budget. And that requires a majority vote. So if that doesn't go through, then no one gets paid. The town doesn't operate. But that's where you can voice your opinion on something, that if you think they're not spending money in the right place. And it's happened before. I've been in a town meeting where people thought more money needs to go to the schools, and they came up and they spoke and said, you know what, I don't think you're giving enough money to the schools. They weren't successful.
Yeah.
The problem with the town meeting, in my opinion, is a lot of the people that are at the town meeting work for the town.
Yeah.
So as part of that, actually the town manager's there. She kind of facilitates and runs the meeting. The moderator actually runs the meeting, but the town manager speaks to almost every warrant article. So obviously if the town manager has a specific view on a warrant article and you vote against it and you work for the town manager, it's kind of a conflict. It's kind of hard to stand up and say, hey, I don't agree with this, when your boss wants you to vote in a certain way. So
Now, Gordy, why do you think it is that people aren't showing up to town meeting?
well, I've spoken to a lot of people about that. The people in my neighborhood I speak to all the time, I ask them if they go to the town meeting. They say no. I think most people aren't aware of it because there's, based on where you live, Dracut's a town. If you're a city, they don't have town meetings. So the mayor makes the decision. So, but that's one thing of being a town, is this is one of the benefits you get is to have a town meeting. But when I was younger, I didn't go. I didn't go to the town meetings, as some other folks have brought up. But
It really is the purest form of democracy.
it really is. And now I hear you have a video, Richard.
I do. I have a little promo for my project, so we're going to play that, and then we're going to have a very special guest on.
Yes,
so,
Rebecca Duda will be joining us right after this video.
so let's roll the clip. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Richard Silvio. Tonight, I'm not contacting you on behalf of the Big O Silvio Show or What's Happening Dracut. I'm contacting you as a person, specifically as head of the World War I Rededication Committee here in the town of Dracut. Right now, I'm currently located at Hovey Square at the World War I Memorial. Just look at it for a second. Can we zoom in for a minute? Take a look at all the names. Look how rusty those names are. Look at the green patina that covers the plaque. 160 names, ladies and gentlemen, are on this monument. 160 men from Dracut who went off to fight in the Great War, World War I, 1914 to 1918. 8 of them didn't return. Now if we can look at the stone for a moment, focus on the stains in the upper left-hand corner. Ladies and gentlemen, this monument is in awful, awful condition. Why am I showing you this though? Well, it has to do with the committee that I mentioned just a few moments ago. The committee, the World War I Rededication Committee, has formed Project World War I Lest We Forget. Now this project is designed to fix up this memorial, clean some of those names, take the stains off the monument, and bring this thing back to its former glory. The memorial itself was put in 1925 during Memorial Day celebrations by President Calvin Coolidge himself. Unfortunately though, since 1925 things have gone downhill drastically. So please, if you could, donate to our cause. You can do so by either donating to our GoFundMe, which you can find on our Facebook page, Project World War I Lest We Forget. You could also donate by writing out a check to World War I Rededication Committee and messaging me personally on Facebook. My name is Richard Silvio. That's S-I-L-V-I-O. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I hope you consider donating and have a wonderful evening.
Richard, excellent report, as always. Now, our special guest that we have, I'm a huge fan, Miss Rebecca Duda, our newly appointed school committee member.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Thank you.
Now,
thank you, Richard, for having me.
Would you like to, I know you're a huge history buff here in town,
yes,
Miss Duda.
I
Would
am.
you like to speak to Richard's project? You must know.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Give us some more-
goodness.
I know of Richard's project.
Oh, don't make me
yeah,
blush. Here we go.
No, I think it's a terrific project. You know, I mean, I wish more young people got involved, right?
Yeah.
To do things like this. But that monument is almost 100 years old. It was dedicated in 1925 down in Hovey Square. And Hovey Square itself is very historic because where Hannaford's was where the old Hovey Tavern and House was. And that dates to the 18th century. So
Yeah.
that's like a really historic center. And with the memorial, it's, you know.
And nobody knows about it, really. That's the
No,
sad part, you
no,
know.
well, that generation has passed, right?
Oh,
The
right.
World War I generation. So, you know, it's good that people like you are taking interest in.
Oh, shucks.
And read. Well, it's true, right?
Now, Miss Duda, I want to give you an opportunity, since we're on the history topic, do you want to plug? I know you've done a couple books.
Oh, okay. Yes, I've done a couple books. Back in 2012, I wrote a book called Dracut Revisited, and that's just about Dracut through the 20th century, really, all different scenes about Dracut. And then in 2014, I wrote Legendary Locals of Dracut, and that's short biographies of people in the school department, veterans, all sectors of life in here in Dracut. And they're both on Amazon if you're interested.
Great. So yeah, if you want to get those copy of those books,
Absolutely.
just go
There's
ahead.
actually a third one, too.
Oh, there is a third one.
short little history book. I gave Richard a copy
Yes.
when you interviewed me during
Yes,
the
you
campaign
did.
on the history of Dracut football. And that's
Oh,
also
really?
on Amazon, yeah.
And you know,
Wow.
when it comes to that one, I just want to give my own little personal endorsement here. I'm not a big sports fan, but I found the book very, very interesting.
good, I'm
so I
glad.
absolutely recommend you get out there and buy it if you
Well,
can.
thank
Now,
you.
Miss Duda, we had you on for a specific purpose. We want to talk a little politics.
Sure, okay.
Now, were you at all surprised that you topped the ticket for the school committee?
I've-
You know, against Joe Wilkie, who had been in there for
The
so
incumbent,
long.
honestly, I've learned in life that anything's possible. And nothing surprises me. It wouldn't surprise me if I came in third. Who knows, right? Because
Right.
I didn't know who Rosemary Espinel
But to me,
was.
I'm just being honest.
You know?
I didn't think you were going to top the ticket. I thought you were going to get in, but I didn't know you were going to top the ticket. I was very surprised.
Well,
Congratulations,
thank you.
really.
Well, thank
Really.
you. Yeah, it was a fun experience. So you never know, right, Mr. Scott?
Right, that's right. So how are you acclimating to your new position with the school committee?
Good. Yeah, everyone's been wonderful. You know, we have a great board with Dr. Truvel, Mr. Wilkie, Ms. Volpe, and Ms. Young. They've been very welcoming and getting me up to speed. The superintendent has, you know, spent some time answering questions because I work in Lowell, so I've been out of the. I'm familiar
Right.
with the schools, but still getting up to speed on certain things.
Right.
You know, and he's been very generous with his time answering questions, so I can understand the nuts and bolts of what's going on here.
Now, I've heard a rumor, and I believe I saw this in the Selectmen's meeting, and you may know about this, so I'll ask you. I heard that we've got a lot of money, incoming money from the marijuana dispensaries.
Yeah.
And I heard that the town manager has said that she was going to take some of that money, give it to the schools, so that next year people will not have to pay bus fees and sports fees. Is that true? Do you know anything about that?
I don't know much more than that. I just
Okay.
know that that's in the talks.
So, okay.
You know, because that is, you know, on everyone's agenda. We'd like to get rid of the user fees.
Right.
Right? Because it's for the performing arts, the athletics, the buses, you know. So I know that they're looking at it, but nothing's been finalized.
Okay, but
you know.
we're hopefully, right,
We're
for those
yes.
people out there watching that have kids in school, hopefully, if things go well, there'll be no bus fees, no performing arts fees, no sports fees.
Correct.
You know, I'd like to give a little shout out real quick to the theatrical department at the high school. I don't expect you to know about this. I don't think the other school committee members even know about this. But we are really underfunded when it comes to our theatrical performances. There's a fee for everyone to play a part in the musical and the play. We all have to buy our own costumes. We all, you know, do our own measurements for the costumes. There's a lot that goes into it, and we are the ones who have to make up those costs. And really, personally, I don't think that's right. You know, I don't know if other towns do that. I think in other towns it's free to participate in that type of stuff, but I really think that's something else that we need to look at.
Yeah.
And Ms. Duda, Richard kind of made national news.
Oh,
And if you don't want to comment on this specific question, I don't blame you, but
That's
I'm going to
okay.
ask it anyway. So there was a teacher, obviously, that kind of people know, it's been in the news,
Yeah.
that put out a survey that was a little risque, that, you know, some people took offense to. There was a school committee meeting. I didn't see the last school committee meeting. Has there been any decision handed down
No,
in
it's
regard to
still
that?
being reviewed by the superintendent. So that's really all I can say.
Okay.
It's a personnel matter, so,
Okay.
yeah, at this time.
So what
I
is...
understand that you have to ask.
Yes.
But at
So
this
we're
time,
just
there's
trying
no
to get an
comment.
update. Richard broke that
Yes.
story, so
Yes.
and it was all over national news. So Richard might win an Emmy or something from Dracut Access TV.
It's
for
certainly
breaking
not going to
it.
be a popularity contest
No,
at the high school.
no,
I can
no.
give you that much.
So, Ms. Duda, what will you be focused on for the next year? For as far as you know, what would be your top 3 priorities on the school committee? What do you think?
Sure.
the
Well,
upcoming
coming
year?
out of COVID, right, I think
Right.
every district, including Dracut, we need to get the kids all back into school and get really focused back into the normal routine of school, right?
Right.
Because this past year has really been a loss. I mean, well, Dracut did a better job than most districts because you had that hybrid model. So
Yeah.
you students spent more time in the classroom than many districts did. So that's good, but still. So I'd like to see, you know, the school site councils, you know, be refocused because that's part of the Ed Reform Plan of 1993. Every school is to have a school site council, and they help develop with the principal the school improvement plan. So I'm sure parents, and that's the site council is comprised of parents, teachers, administrators, and community members. So I'm sure everyone will have a say and, you know, and want a voice in, you know, improvement plans for their individual site on how to help their students. So that's one thing. The other thing is looking at our attendance numbers and making sure we get kids back into the routine of going to school because all districts suffered with chronic absenteeism, you know, this year because going to school online is not the same as going into the building every day.
Right,
So,
right.
and it honestly, it is challenging. You know, if you're not used to taking a course online, and if you're not disciplined to do that, or if you don't have the supports at home, or there's lots of different variables. So,
I'll stop you right there. Can you speak a little bit more? I want to do a follow-up question
Sure.
on that. Like, what are your thoughts specifically? Do you really think that it, you know, how much of an advantage is it to go in school versus at home schooling from a teacher's standpoint?
as from a teacher's standpoint, all right, I can speak because I'm also an adjunct at UMass Lowell.
Right,
So
okay.
last spring when we shut down, we took our final, and that week we happened to be on spring break when everyone got told to go into quarantine, and we were all forced to go online. It is not the same teaching in person and learning, you know, with the students in the classroom with you and forming those relationships. It's just not. It's a disconnect, right?
But did you
And-
see the grades
Yes.
decline dramatically, or?
Yes, and for some students. And this year, I taught again, and we knew up front we were online. So I developed the course to be an online model. Like, because you would develop the course different, right?
Right,
And
right.
different activities and the presentations and all that. So I knew going in. But even this semester, with everyone on board knowing it's online, some kids still struggled, right?
Right.
Because, and some kids still excelled, but it's not the same as in the classroom.
And a lot of the kids have been out last year, right? The end of last year, and then all of this year, pretty
Right.
much, right? So, what are your thoughts on like the education of our students? Do you think how far behind do you think they'll be? Will it be easy to catch up? Will it be difficult to catch up?
I can't speak for the young students. I've never taught someone who's in kindergarten, first
Right.
grade. Children who are learning how to read and
Like
write.
middle school, high school?
Middle school and high school, I can speak to, and I can say that they're probably half a year behind. That's
Oh, my goodness.
that's just my estimation. I mean, it's hard to gauge. Every student's different too, but I mean, you have to think we lost last spring,
Right.
right? And then this year we were all online, but it's really not the same, Mr. Scott. You know?
Speaking of COVID, going back to school, obviously we're going to be in full person starting in September. Do we know if there are going to be any restrictions in terms of masks and distancing to start the next school year, or?
I don't want to say specifically because I haven't seen the latest guidance. My understandings from what I've heard,
Yes.
because I also work in Lowell in the school department, is that we're hoping that there are no restrictions.
And how do you support that? How do you feel about no restrictions on top of student events like proms, dances, etc.?
I have no problem with it at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, the vaccination rates are high. The COVID numbers are going down.
Well, speaking of vaccination rates, do you think all students should be required to be vaccinated?
No.
Now, have you heard?
You have my support.
What's the feedback you've gotten from parents? Are they pro no mask? Are they pro mask? Have you seen both? Like people are afraid to send their kids in because they're afraid they're going to get ill, or what?
I can only speak from my experience in Lowell because I haven't really, interacted with that here in Dracut, and I don't sense that most families are nervous about sending their children in with no mask.
And how about the teacher, your coworkers, or people that you work with? Are they the teachers union and things like that? Are they concerned?
I can't speak to the teachers union. I can just speak to the group that I'm working with in central office, and sometimes we interact with the schools, and the group that I'm speaking with, we're comfortable with no mask.
You're comfortable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
and sometimes we put it on though. It depends.
I know right now we have the pool testing every Tuesday, I believe it is.
Yeah.
Are we going to continue that going into next year, or is that going to be done with as well?
I have not heard an update yet.
Because I know right now the state's paying for it, I believe, correct?
Correct, yeah, because we also have that in Lowell too. I have not heard an update either way.
Yeah.
If we're going to continue with that, even in Lowell, I don't know.
It's going to be an interesting summer with updates for the
Oh,
fall.
yes. Well, that's the thing. Ever since COVID started, the guidance changes continuously. Every time you think, because in Lowell, we were trying to place the children, because we don't have neighborhood schools. They have school choice. And every time we thought we understood what was going on, the rules changed, like with the buses and transporting children. So it was challenging.
I can tell you guys for a fact that I do know that school lunches will also be free next year.
Really?
I've heard that from the lunch ladies.
Well, they're definitely free through the summer for sure.
Oh yes.
Yes,
But I heard going into next year that they will also be free.
Wow.
So I wonder where that money is coming from, because obviously
It must be the COVID money.
It's the COVID and the ESSER funding, because
Yeah.
there's been 3 ESSER bills. ESSER 1, which was in December, passed under Trump, and then President Biden has ESSER 2 and 3. So we have 3 rounds of federal money coming. So I believe it's part of his American Recoveries Act.
So, hopefully if the lunch lady gossip is right, I won't be embarrassed, but that is what I've heard.
No, it wouldn't surprise me,
So
to
now,
be
Ms.
honest.
Duda, have you had a chance to delve into the finances? And I know that with COVID, obviously businesses have been closed. We get taxes in from, meals tax, property taxes. People have not been able to pay property taxes. Some people, because of COVID, they lost their job. Have you seen the budget numbers? I think they did net level spending again.
Correct. We're just above net school spending again.
Net school spending,
Yep.
right?
And I was talking with the superintendent to get up to speed on the ESSER funding.
Okay.
So he's been giving me, answering some of my questions, just like how much, we're projected to have and things like that. But no, so I'm still diving into the honest answer is I'm still catching up on the Dracut budget.
Do you have any concerns about the budget? I know a lot of the parents that I speak to, they're very concerned about, they don't think the schools have enough money, especially special ed is one big one. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, you have to agree with that. I mean, we're
Right.
just above net school spending. right? Like, then that's what we've been traditionally, whereas most school districts are like 10 to 20% over the net required spending. So yeah, it makes a difference, because that difference means that we have fewer teachers, that we have less programming, special ed teachers, paras. So yeah, I totally agree.
Speaking of spending, I'm glad we brought that up. As I'm sure you know, the Dracut High School bought a ton more Chrome card books. And students, have been able to take them home. Personally, I took one home, so I can have it to do my work online. A lot of schools, across the state and across the country, especially high schools and colleges, give students a laptop of some sort, to take home with them and give it back at the end of the year. Do you know if that's something that we might continue, given the surplus of Chromebooks?
Sure. Oh, you're talking about a one-to-one initiative.
Correct.
Right. I can't say for sure, but I hope so. I would assume so, because at this, the way the calendars are designed now too, you don't really have snow days anymore.
Yeah.
You would need to go remote. So personally, I think that we should have a one-to-one initiative. That's, again, something I have to catch up with the superintendent. That might have already been discussed by the school committee. But you're right, we have a lot of extra Chromebooks because we had to purchase everything when everyone went remote last year.
So I just want to make sure I caught that correctly.
Yes.
Are you saying there are no more snow days?
Well,
the kids are going to be devastated if
Yeah.
there's no more.
I just had a mini heart attack sitting
Yes. Well, that's the way we're doing it in Lowell, I should say. I assume the
Okay.
same thing in Dracut, because
Yeah.
now that
Remote learning is
remote
kind
learning,
of the, right. It's part of the curriculum.
It's part of
now?
the curriculum, so we're all used to it now. So
Oh,
we didn't
my
have snow
goodness.
days in Lowell.
There's going to be a lot of upset second, third, and fourth graders out there.
Yes,
They want to
yeah.
go sledding down the hill.
Well, I have to admit, I kind of missed them too.
You know what? I believe when winter first came around, the Superintendent Stone released a statement saying, don't worry, guys, we will still have, a few snow days that we'll give to you.
Well, yeah, because if the internet's down, for example, if we have a power outage, we can't have,
true. Right.
It'd be nice, though, if he could give us one day, one day out of the
token
year
snow
to go
day.
sledding, just one day.
But going back to your question, though, Richard,
Yes.
I also think it's important that we continue doing one-to-one initiatives, because you need to have technology as part of your repertoire when you go into the workforce.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's a skill that the students need to have.
Especially nowadays, it's
Right.
internet is everything.
Absolutely. So,
Now I know, Ms. Duda, very near and dear to my heart is Project 351. As
Yes,
you know.
good
Is that
project.
still going on? Are you have any involvement with that? And can you tell the viewers
Sure.
what Project 351 is about? I know you ran it in Dracut for several years.
yes. So Project 351 was actually started by Governor Deval Patrick as a service project for all 8th graders in Massachusetts, and it gets its name because there are 351 municipalities in the Commonwealth, and he had a day of service where all the students would go into different places. It wasn't just the State House,
Right.
But it was, and they would complete service projects and then meet other members of say the Boston Celtics, other community members, to talk about service and what that means. So it was a wonderful project. Your son Kyle
Yes,
was part
thank
of
you,
it.
by the way. Thank you,
That's
by
right.
the way, for nominating him.
Yeah, no, it's a wonderful project. So it's on my Twitter feed. So Project 351 still exists.
Okay.
Well, last year was COVID, so they,
Right.
this year was COVID rather in January. So they
And
couldn't
I
do it.
actually donated some of my time. I was actually a parent guider. So we went.
really?
And, we actually went. I went to Cradles to Crayons.
Yes, that's
and
right.
and Mr. Deval Patrick was right next to me. We were going through some of the clothes. Got my picture
Look at
taken.
you,
with-
Gordy.
Yeah.
it
Rubbing elbows.
It started back in 2011. The first
Really?
year, that was the year it got launched, and I brought Alex Cochran. You probably don't know him because he's graduated, but he was the first student from Dracut to go. So
It was very worthwhile. I got a lot out of it, and then we got to go in the summer again. We got to go down to Gillette Stadium
Yeah.
and help out some needy families. It was really great.
it's
we got to meet
a
some-
really worthwhile project.
is.
You know, speaking of projects to learn more about the government, I know a big thing, at least with the middle schoolers, was the Washington, D.C. trip. Because I happen to know that I believe the current sophomores are the ones who rudely misbehaved in D.C. and got the trip canceled for us. Do you know if that's coming back?
Oh, I can't say. Trips are a school-based decision.
Or would that would come down to the school
It
itself?
would have to come down to the school itself and whoever wants to organize it in the school.
Yes.
And then trips like that do come before the school committee for approval. So that's that's the role I would have in the trip at this point, so.
Interesting.
Have you been able to go see the new football field and the track?
I drove by and I got out to see the best I could because it was closed. But it's a beautiful facility.
Isn't it beautiful?
I just came from Pride Night too, and I got a glimpse of it there too. It was a beautiful facility. They did a wonderful job. Yeah.
And did you go, were you able, are you going to attend, well, graduation happened,
Yeah.
right?
No, this was,
it's on Friday.
No,
Is this Friday?
yeah, tonight was Pride Night where
Okay.
they give out the scholarships, and then Friday is graduation.
All right, so will you be attending the
Oh,
graduation?
absolutely.
Oh, good.
I love graduation, especially this year. It has a lot of meaning for me because these were the last students I taught before I left to go work in
Oh,
law.
that's great.
Oh.
So just now I was watching some of these kids. They're all grown up. I had them
Yeah.
4 years ago.
So I know we spoke about, to get back to your role in the school committee,
Sure.
we spoke about COVID, right? Getting back to school and
Yeah.
planning for next year. What are some of the other things other than COVID that you want to focus on as your role on the school committee?
Sure. Working with the superintendent on the budget and, for the ESSER funds, because that's a significant amount of money that every community received, but it's not going to last forever.
Right.
So we don't want to just, we
What
have
do you
to-
think
we have to
that'll
be
get
thoughtful.
targeted to, those ESSER funds? Would it be more technology, you think? Would it be like
I would-
the
I'm only guessing at this point because I haven't seen, the superintendent and I just talked about it briefly. What we don't want to do is, for sure, create, positions and not be able to fund them
Right,
in
that's-
3 years from now, right?
Right,
Because
right.
you go off, the funding cliff. But I would agree that if we invested in things that sustain our infrastructure per se in the schools, like technology, then
or like maybe the air conditioning?
air conditioning, air
The
purifiers,
filtration
filtrations, HVAC, all that. That would be worthwhile. So, but those are definitely conversations we're going to be focusing our time on the school committee.
And I know how hard you work as a teacher.
Thank you.
Or you did at Dracut.
Yes.
I know how hard you work, so I know you're going to give us the same
Oh, absolutely.
amount of hard work at the school committee.
Absolutely, yeah. I enjoy everything about school, to be perfectly honest. And it's interesting now seeing it from the school committee side, right? Because I've seen it as a teacher, I've seen it as an administrator currently in Lowell, and now I see it on the school committee.
So you've got all the different...
all the different angles.
Now,
yeah.
did you go to school in Dracut growing up?
No,
or-
I actually grew up in Beverly, Massachusetts.
Oh, Beverly,
Really?
okay.
Yes, I grew up in Beverly. Yep.
I'd like to speak out as a Dracut student here. I know with most things I don't speak for the majority, but I think I do when I say that we need to fix the heating in the AC systems. Because throughout the year, you can go into one classroom, it's -40, you have to put on your winter coat, but the classroom next door is 85 degrees.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's an issue with all high schools or all schools, but that's something that I definitely think needs to be looked into, because that's...
Well, I will take that under advisement,
Thank you.
Richard.
See, she's already taking taking
Well,
stuff.
of
That's
course.
wonderful.
There we go.
Well, I wouldn't know about that, right?
Yeah,
Unless you
right.
brought it to my attention.
You have to speak out.
So now, another thing that parents have brought it to my attention is they don't think there's enough counselors throughout the school. Do you think that's something that we would be able to get in the near future if we can get some more money
Yeah.
from the town?
Well, in the last school committee meeting, we did vote to add a position to the high school
Oh, good.
for a counselor. So the high school, because right now, the high school just has one.
Yeah,
For the
that's
entire,
tough.
that's not enough.
Yeah.
No, you can't do that. So the superintendent made the recommendation for a second counselor, and that'll be added to the building. I'd like to see more, right? More support for our young people, for sure.
Right. Have you reached out to anyone yet? I know you've only been in your
That's okay.
position for maybe a month, right?
Yeah.
Have you reached out to anyone from the Board of Selectmen to see, to maybe talk to them to see if there's some way to get some more funds into the school?
No, I have not done that yet, to be honest. But I will be, because that's a significant part of the school committee's time, is working on the budget.
Right, and I think that it's a big win for the town, right? Because the more investment we put into the schools, the more people we get moved to the town because we have better school system.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your house prices go up.
Property values, absolutely. No,
Right.
the school department is a central part of any community. So we all reap the benefits of having a strong school system that attracts people to the district, right?
Right. Oh, I did want to, totally forgot to mention, big kudos and thanks to the guys here at DATV. We had
Oh,
a
yes.
great We had
The
a great-
parade. The virtual parade.
Well, we had a parade, but I'm
Yes.
talking about the telethon.
Oh,
the telethon
yes.
was great. They raised over $160,000
Yeah,
for.
yeah, 155.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was just at Pride Night, and they just handed out 52 scholarships.
Oh, so that's
Yeah,
awesome.
it was amazing. Yeah,
That's great.
It's
and
amazing.
they're higher than they were, so that was really
Yes.
good. I was surprised that it was that much with COVID and everything.
Well, it's amazing how the community, even with COVID, comes through for the students. It's
I
really
bought my
remarkable.
$100 raffle ticket. I wasn't the winner. But
I wasn't either.
Well, I'm sure you made up for it in Las Vegas, Gordy.
Yeah.
But with the telethon, a question I have for those scholarships.
Sure.
So, does the monetary amount for each scholarship raise and lower as depending on how many are being handed out, or is it a set amount?
Well, if I remember correctly, because I was on the Scholarship Foundation several years ago.
Oh, of course you were. You've been all over the place.
So I'm speaking from
Yes.
my memory now.
Yes.
They determine how many scholarships based on how much money that they raise.
So it fluctuates.
So it can
So I
fluctuate a
think
little.
the higher, if you have a 4.0 or whatever,
Right.
you get a little bit more.
That is correct, because there's a rubric that they go by. It's blinded, so they don't know who they're scoring, and there's a rubric, and they figure it out that way. So
Interesting.
yeah, no, it's a year-round event.
Yeah.
They pass out 52 scholarships, right? But the work will start tomorrow.
Yeah.
On thinking on the next,
next
year's,
one, yeah.
Yeah, the craft fairs in the fall. So that's a hard-working group of people.
Right. And we've got, actually, I heard today that we have Old Home Day is going to be scheduled
Yes.
for the fall. So
Yes, it's going to be on 9/11 actually. this
9/11.
year.
Yeah,
Yes.
Old Home Day is back on. That's wonderful news.
I'm so thrilled. Really, I love Home Day every year. It's wonderful.
That's good to
It's
hear. So, Ms. Duda, what else do you want to talk about tonight as far as the school committee goes?
As far as the school committee goes,
Yeah.
well, there's a lot for me to learn, right, still, because as you showed, the finances and the budget, I've been reading through the policy manual to get up to speed on the current policies that we have in the district, because that's another major focus of the school committee, finance and policy. And just helping the kids get back into school, really. And getting ready.
Do you foresee any policy changes coming up?
I don't foresee
because of
any.
COVID or because of any, with as far as curriculum or anything like that.
No, I don't foresee any. I mean, some of them will probably become obsolete because of COVID. Some of them were written because in Lowell, for example, we have specific policies that were written just for 1 year. So I envision Dracut probably has something similar.
Okay.
I don't know.
Richard, do you have any other questions for Mr.?
So I'd like to ask something about the schools regarding national politics.
Okay.
This may be a little far-fetched, but it's always fun to talk about.
Sure.
The 1619 project, which I'm sure you're well aware of, critical
Yes,
race
I am.
theory.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything of that coming to Dracut, but how would you feel if somebody proposed bringing that into the school system?
Bring the
The critical, yes.
1619
Yes.
project in?
How would you feel about that?
Well, I think it should be discussed.
Really?
Yeah. That's what school's all about. You have to discuss ideas. There's
Interesting,
nothing wrong
okay.
with a discussion,
Right,
right?
right.
Because it is an interesting project that they did.
Right.
Because you could also then talk about President Trump's project that he did, the 1776 project,
Yes.
which was written, in rebuttal, I could
Right.
say,
I
to
believe
the
so, yes.
1619 project. So that was written by one of his advisors. I can't recall the gentleman's name now.
So let's bring them both in.
Right. Well, that's
Yeah.
what education's all
Right,
about. It's about
right.
discussing ideas.
Right.
Right. And that's the role of the teachers, to facilitate ideas.
Right.
And have a discussion.
And I think that you bring up a good point. I think that discussing that and actually, I think some of the points of the 1619
Yeah.
are good, but sometimes the implementation, when it gets down to the teachers, they don't get executed correctly. I
Right.
don't think.
I think there's a difference between teaching a project and discussing it.
Right. Well, you don't want to indoctrinate someone.
Right.
Right. We're not looking to proselytize something.
Right.
Right.
But that is valid research,
Yeah,
and that is
absolutely.
because really history is very controversial.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And depending upon who wrote history, your point of view, you can have different. I don't want to say different versions, but different perspectives
Yeah.
on the same event, right?
You know, I think given the amount of tension in the U.S. over the past few years, especially with the youth, I think we need to focus more on discussing history and the different point of views. I think that's going to be a big player in the future.
Well, what history shouldn't be is a memorization of facts and
absolutely.
dates.
You're right.
Because I couldn't even debate what a fact is with you
Right.
in some cases, right? But I have no problem with discussing what the 1619 project is. I discussed it in my college class. I taught, because at UMass I teach current U.S. history, so from 1877 on, so from Reconstruction on. And you bring it up, you know? And, but then we have discussions, and some of them thought it was complete, you know, malarkey.
You know, which is their right, you know, at the end
That's
of the day.
right. But that's what education's
makes it
all
beautiful,
about.
really.
Right.
You know what, speaking of that, I would like to ask you a specific question
Okay.
for other, I would say conservative, but other politically active students out there. So there have been times where I felt the curriculum that I was being taught was a little, let's say, far-fetched. That's the wrong terminology, but, you know, I was a little concerned with what was being taught. I almost saw it as indoctrination, right?
Are you talking about history curriculum?
Or just in general.
Just in
I
general?
don't want to get too specific.
Okay.
Now, if another student feels this way, what action can they take? What steps can they take to bring that
They
up
should.
to?
Well, they should address it with the teacher. Any issue in the classroom, you should address
Yeah.
right with your teacher. And I would hope that the instructor would have a open conversation and dialogue with that student, right?
Now, if the student still feels, and I'm putting you on the spot, let me know. I'm sorry,
That's
but if the
okay.
student still feels uncomfortable after speaking with the teacher, what do you think they should do?
They should go to the assistant principal, just like you would have with any issue within the
Right.
school, right? You always start with the person in the classroom, with the teacher, and if it can't get resolved, then you would move on to perhaps a guidance counselor, but
Right.
the assistant principal, you know.
And I would like to say, you know, I bring this up because when this happened with me over the school year, I made the mistake of not speaking to the teachers and going over their head, which created some tension, understandably.
Right.
And I have apologized to those teachers again. I sincerely apologize to you for making you uncomfortable. But, you know, I think it's nice that we discuss this and let kids know the options they have
Right.
when dealing with this type of
Because if you don't start with the teacher, they don't even know
Right.
that there's an issue or a concern, right? So you have to start there. Just like you would with anything in life, really. You should start where the issue is.
thing. Right at the core.
Right at the core, yep.
Now, I know that one of the big budget items on the Dracut budget is special education because of
Yes.
the busing and the transportation
Yeah.
and things
And
like
out
that.
of district,
Out
sure.
of district. So what do you think we can do to improve? A lot of the people I know in my neighborhood have a child that's in special education in Dracut, and they complain a lot. I'm not saying, but they're concerned about the education and of their child in special education. Is there anything you think that we could do to improve our special education program in Dracut?
Well, one of the questions that came up at the candidates forum back in April during the campaign was it had to do with special education, and apparently, and I didn't research this, so I'll take it that it's fact. I assume that they gave us accurate information,
Right.
that we had higher percentage of students in special education than other districts. I think the percentage was we have 16%, but
Yeah.
don't hold me
Really?
to that. I'm doing
Yeah,
it from memory.
it's something high.
It's something
in the
like that, and that
teens,
was
yeah.
the question, and the question was, you know, how would you address that? So I would say that we might need to look at what's called the teacher assistance team, a TAP process, because when a child is struggling in the classroom, the school should be, and I know that they do it here because I was on TAP teams here in Dracut, convene a team of teachers, administrators, and the parents to develop strategies to support the child. And those strategies could be all kinds of different things. And eventually, if nothing else works, the team might request an evaluation for a SPED referral, and the child may or may not be found for SPED services. So I'm wondering how strong that TAP process is. Like if you have a strong TAP process, you may have fewer SPED referrals. So I'm wondering if we're just jumping the gun and going right to the SPED referral. I'm not sure, but that's one area that I would look at.
I'd like to say in the comments on the Facebook, we have Angel out there watching. Hello, Angel. How are you? And they said DCAP. I'm not sure what that is. Is that some type of special education?
DCAP?
Yes.
I'm not familiar with that.
DECP?
DCAP.
DE.
DCAP.
If Angel, if you're watching, if you can tell us what that
Could you elaborate, please?
And I'm sure Ms. Duda will be happy to answer.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yes. Is he referring to this? Well, we also have the Special Education Advisory Council, too. That's a parent.
Oh, they said it's the District Curriculum Accommodation Plan.
Oh, yes. Thank you. I'm slow on my...
Acronyms. Acronyms.
Education is full of acronyms, sorry.
Yeah.
So yes, there's a document called the Curriculum Accommodation Plan.
Yes.
And the district should be utilizing that because that's a tool that helps teachers with students who are struggling in the classroom as well. So that's another thing. If the teachers aren't utilizing that, or if it hasn't been updated, that is actually, thank you, Angel, for pointing that out. That's probably something we should investigate as well.
Good.
Good.
Richard, anything else?
You know, off the top of my head, not really. When it comes to the schools, is there anything that you would like to talk about? You know, even not related to the schools, just something that
Well, just going back to the schools, something
yeah,
that does interest me too is the transition from 8th grade to 9th grade.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
All right, because that's critical. Any transition year is critical for a student, but especially 8th into 9th, because one of the data points, if you look on the DESE website, one of the data points they collect for schools is the percentage of classes that your grade 9 students are failing. Because the more classes that you fail, the higher your likelihood of not graduating high school. So 9th grade is really critical. If you have a good foundation in high school in 9th grade, it's a key predictor of your success going forward, and not only graduating, but just your success overall in the building. So I'm interested in those numbers, the percentage of students who are passing all of their grade 9 classes, how many they're failing, things like that.
Can you talk a little bit about the standardized testing? I've heard rumors that that's going away. Is that true? Is that false? What are your thoughts on the standardized tests?
Thoughts on standardized testing? I think we rely too much on them. Sometimes, like, I'm not really
Do you think the teachers are
Here.
teaching towards the standardized tests?
I've known teachers that do that. I mean, if you teach properly, I shouldn't say properly, but if you teach the standards, right, that are in the frameworks, then you should inherently do well on the exam. But if you just pick and choose like certain types of questions and you target, that's not as successful. So if you're teaching the standards, which is, you know, you can pick any of them, right, because they're usually across the curriculum. So, you know, how to cite evidence, how to support your position with evidence, that's how to do a summary, how to do point of view. These are all standards, so if they're skills. So if the child can do the skill, then they should be able to do okay on the test. And a lot of them are skills that you need in everyday life. So I don't necessarily have a problem with standards and having some sort of assessment, but we don't want to be teaching to the test, right?
Now, would you be a proponent to get rid of the standardized testing and maybe in high school, for example, instead of a standardized test, maybe have an ACT or an SAT where the student is required to meet a certain level of a SAT or ACT? Would you?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I consider it, and I'm not trying to avoid the question, but I had never considered it before.
Because I think if you did an ACT or an SAT test, it would kind of kill two birds with one stone, if you will.
Right.
It would show the level of competence of the student, and it would also prepare you for college entrance, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, so if you get an 18, for example, on an ACT, you're like, well, geez, that's pretty low. That may meet the state requirements, but I can always take it again the next year.
Right.
And go up to maybe to a 21 or get.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea, Mr. Scott. I like that.
There you go.
No,
Yeah,
we do
because I have to admit, the MCAS, I was on the MCAS development committee through DESE for years, for the 8th grade, for the English. And it's pretty rigorous, and we spend a lot of time on developing the tests, but it's, you know, again, it's a test and it's limited. So it might be time to look at other ideas like yours.
Yeah, but for the younger ages, obviously, I don't think that would work too well. Because
No, you couldn't
unless
do it
they
for the
came out
young.
with an ACT or an SAT standardized test for younger children.
For the oldest students, though, it might work. You know?
I'd like to say Angel, again, very active in the comments,
That's okay.
brought up a good point that MCAS this year is happening. It's
Yes,
happening
it is.
this week and next week for sophomores and freshmen, even though DESE has waived it as a grad requirement, yet they're still giving the test. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, because they want to gauge how much learning loss we've had.
Yeah.
So they're not going to hold schools accountable. So it's like what's that called? No harm, no foul.
Yeah.
Right. You have to take. You have
Right.
to do the tests, but it's really for informative purposes.
Right, right.
To basically level set where you are.
Correct. To reset. And that is interesting because that was the question you raised earlier, right? How much learning loss do I think we've had?
Right.
So I can think something, but we actually need a tool to measure what's going on. It's probably especially in the math classes too.
Right.
Now, when do MCAS results usually come out?
In
Is the following?
October.
So you'll see, as a school committee member, I'm assuming you'll get those results and be able to review those.
I'm sure the superintendent will give us a review.
Well, I
Yes.
can't wait to see those scores. That's going to be very interesting.
It will be
to see,
interesting, yeah.
Very
To see,
informative.
I'm curious to see what effect COVID had on the
Yeah.
remote learning and to see what, because it should, I would think, it would display in the scores.
I would think so. I would think especially in the math scores too.
Yeah.
Because math is a subject where you really have to build on skill after skill.
Right, I would think like a history, like you said, a history might be easier to learn
Correct.
remotely than math because math is very,
Yes. In your science classes, they couldn't
Tactical.
do labs.
Science and math are going
Right.
to be two.
Right. They couldn't do their labs in science, so it was much more challenging. History, being a history teacher, I did get a little lucky.
Yeah.
It was easier to prepare a lesson, right,
Right.
for Zoom, but it was still challenging.
All right, well, I think we're towards the end of the show.
Oh, that went
I
by
wanna
quickly.
I know it goes fast, doesn't it?
It
I
did.
want to thank you so much, Ms. Duda, for coming on.
Oh.
I'm excited to have new blood in the school committee.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
absolutely.
you'll get things pointed in the right direction. I know that you will.
Well, thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate it, and I do
Ditto.
promise to work hard.
All right, and maybe we can have maybe next year we can have, or later in the fall, we can have you come back on and give us a status report.
Absolutely.
And see how we're doing.
Yes, I would be happy to.
Great.
Absolutely.
Thanks again, Ms. Duda. For Richard Silvio, I'm Gordy Scott, and when it's 6:30 and it's Wednesday night, it's What's Happening Dracut. Good night, Dracut.